Hey everyone. So before we go into the video, what I wanted to do, Zena and I both wanted to do, was to make sure that we wanted to be clear about the contents of this video. What we're trying to track here is sort of a thing that has by word of mouth been sort of told to us as a phenomenon. We wanted to bring Kat on because Kat seems to have experience with this, but we want to also make it clear that we can't verify any of the claims here made, other than like the definitional ones, like what trans misogyny is and etc. So we just want you to know that this is going by people's personal experiences. At this point, can't verify everything, but wanted to give that understanding. Do you want to throw anything else?
No, that was
That was all? All right.
Yeah, just we try really hard to just be clear about what stuff we are actually knowledgeable about and what stuff we aren't. And so please just, take this, Kat's words are Kat's words, so please just, take those as her thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, enjoy the video. Hey, everyone. So we wanted to touch base and go over something we've kind of briefly mentioned on stream before. And first, I want to introduce you to our guests. So, hello, Catherine. Hi.
Hey, everyone. So I am Kat. I usually just go by Kat.
Okay.
Reddit user Katakalai, and resident moderator of r/MTF, r/transadorable, r/traa, and r/feminine boys, because we love our feminine boys around here.
That is a resume as far as Reddit moderation goes. So really appreciate you being here. So why don't I explain kind of where we were kind of coming from this? Zena, feel free to hop in.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. So as we mentioned on stream previously, guys, I had mentioned that I had noticed a really weird thing. r/trans with all the A's and the N's, or traa. I ended up hopping out of, as did Zena. We used to follow that subreddit really closely. We really liked it. It was full of lulz, full of cute memes. It was really nice as like a palate cleanser, especially considering Twitter.
We share the same memes with each other constantly.
Yeah, it's a race to see who saw what. So the issue is that there was recently some sort of kerfluffle there in the last couple of weeks, and this was my understanding of it. Now, obviously, I will let Kat clarify any of that should I make any mistakes, but this is what we were under the impression of. So there were allegations on there about supposedly transmasc individuals being sent inappropriate DMs, and this resulted in a thread talking about this phenomenon, which, okay, fair enough, but it resulted in a lot of trans misogyny, and there seems to be yay. And the problem is that when I brought this up to a dear friend of mine, Bimbo Politics on Twitter.
I love her. Her and I are good friends.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, she's my mysterious benefactor for my Sailor Scout outfit. That'll be here soon. Anyway, so the thing is that she pointed me to Kat because there seems to be a larger phenomenon going on here, not just on Reddit, but just kind of as a whole. What I want to figure out today is just sort of how this connects to different things we've seen recently, like that letter that like a bunch of transmasc individuals signed against trans femmes that included Buck Angel, and just what the heck is going on? Did I leave out anything, or did you want to add anything, Zena?
No, we'll probably let Kat go more into some of the
specifics. So go ahead, Kat.
So, yeah, like you said, a lot of this recent dust up on r/traa happened. There was a big post that blew up about, like you said, some transmasc and non-binary members of the community were getting harassing DMs from other users who were ostensibly trans feminine, that were just very, very inappropriate, right? And I wanna be clear from the onset that like those DMs that were being sent were inappropriate and shouldn't be getting done. We do not stand sending people inappropriate DMs. It's bad. Don't do it. Where this sort of becomes a problem, and there I I I I want to make sure I'm putting this the right way. Reddit and society writ large has a very big trans misogyny issue.
True.
And so what you'll see happen a lot of the times in instances like this, you know, some anonymous trans femme ostensibly users are sending these bad things, and suddenly we are collectively blaming trans femmes as a class. That people will say, oh no, it wasn't blaming all trans women kind of thing, but like, you know what, we can look at stuff like the BBC article that came out recently. The BBC article said, oh, we're being pressured into sex by some trans women, and you can't just weasel out of this like collective blaming by using weasel words like, oh, some trans women are doing this kind of thing.
I've heard
It's
some people saying this. Yeah, you just
yeah,
it's literally weasel words.
it's collective. It's holding a marginalized community collectively responsible for the actions of bad individuals, and that's wrong no matter which marginalized community you're doing it to. And in this case, it's backlash against trans women. um and again, I want to make it clear, we are not defending anyone sending inappropriate direct messages to other users. That's bad. Don't do it. Please. I'll say one thing, speaking as a Reddit moderator, the unfortunate truth is that in cases like this, we can, as Reddit moderators, we can go in and we can, create auto mod filters for our subreddits. So like, since a lot of this drama has kicked up, I got added to the moderation team a couple days after the big post about the DMs happened. One of the active moderators basically was talking in one of these threads about how basically they were the only active moderator at the time. So I kind of sent them a DM. I was like, hey, I'm available to help if y'all need help. And in the last couple weeks since I became a moderator, I've gone in and created a bunch of like automod rules to try and automatically filter a lot of what we'll say people have identified as problematic behavior on part of trans women in the community on that subreddit on r/traa. This is stuff like saying, going onto a trans masks meme post and saying, hey, want to swap parts? Or, hey, can we trade? Kind of stuff like that. And we've also done stuff with like, people talking about how they had a Nazi phase in the and one thing I want to make clear is that in my experience, in my limited experience now as a Reddit moderator, I have noticed that there is, again, and we can kind of back up and go back to this whole idea of like collectively yelling at trans women, or collectively like blaming trans women for like things that they're doing. Trans women are hyper scrutinized for and in the society that we live in, trans women will be monsterized for any reason or none at all. A lot of one of the things that stood out to me in particular, because we see with one of the things, and that's commonly complained about in this, has been complained about in this community, I should say. Sorry, I'm a little sick right now, so if I'm like having a little bit trouble talking, that's why. Thankfully,
No
it's not
worries.
COVID. A lot of the comments that have been getting filtered out by all these filters that people have been asking for, like, hey, stop saying, can we swap? Or stop saying, such and such, whatever. It's not mostly trans women whose comments are getting automatically removed by the automod filter. I mean, there's really no two ways about it.
A clue.
But that's neither here nor there, because now those phrases are banned on the subreddit. Because I'm probably coming across as a bit flippant right now. I do want traa to be an inclusive community for everyone, right? I want everyone to feel safe and welcome and everything in this community. And I hope that I am doing a good job at fostering an inclusive community for everyone. And I hope that I can do that and also maybe stamp out some of the, we'll say maybe unexamined trans misogyny that's been allowed to fester in r/traa and the Reddit trans community writ large and the internet writ large.
So could you go into that a little bit, like this sort of this idea of this undercurrent or this like infection of trans misogyny that seems to be in subreddits where you'd think, at least intuitively, that it shouldn't be. Because that's the thing I'm really surprised by, is just how upset so many people were when I found all these posts about this stuff happening. Is it wasn't just the people who had gotten them DMs, it was the people who saw this thread. And from what I understand, and again, I only saw the responses and the reactions, it seemed like some of these things that were said were really rough. And so I guess I'm just curious, what does that look like to you? Like, what is that?
Sorry, could you some of the things that were said, from whom to whom?
So it seems like during the discussion about transmasc individuals getting the DMs, transmasc and other individuals engaged in a large amount of trans misogyny. Seemed like there was a lot of trans femme and other folks that were really bothered by this. And you're speaking about this undercurrent of trans misogyny, and I want to know more about that. Like, what are you seeing with this? What is this undercurrent, both at, Reddit as a whole, but specifically in r/traa? Because I want to understand that better.
I mean, it's really just, it's essentially a manifestation of like trans misogyny as it exists, and this is not something that's unique to Reddit, right? It is present on Reddit, but it is present everywhere else in society because we live in a fundamentally trans misogynistic society, which again will look for any reason or none at all to monsterize trans women. You see this all the time on, the one perfect example that I like to use, and I talk about this all the time, how like, by and large on trans Reddit, you can't go a week without having some kind of, hey everybody, trans women kind of suck, don't they? And it'll be a post that's got like 10 million upvotes and 700 comments, and it's really just like complaining that trans women are in the community and active. And
jeez, I have not seen one of those. Wow. I would have unsubbed a while ago.
I mean, they're not that explicit generally, but you get a lot of trans women are taking up too much space. Trans women are being too loud. Trans women are speaking over us. Trans women are doing this, that, and the other thing. That's really just like, really what it is it's a manifestation of the fact that there are a lot of trans women in this community. This is a community where trans women feel safe and to participate. So obviously they are going to. And this is where we start getting into a lot of problematic things where you'll have people saying like, oh, well, trans women are doing this because they're male socialized or they're AMAB socialized or stuff like that. Other like trans misogynistic tropes, which are really just, fundamentally a form of misgendering with extra steps.
Well, and so that one, here's kind of how I've been thinking about it for a while, because I'm like, okay, yes, people get raised with certain gender norms, gender roles. However, what people don't realize is that can be so, on the one hand, there's society at large, okay, but also for each individual person, what you get raised with can be very unique to you and very, very different. Jess and I have talked about this with our upbringings, right? Mine really did have a very like traditional, like women's role bent to it, despite my parents thinking that they were raising me and my brothers equally. They didn't, right? And so mine was kind of normal, I guess. And for Jess, I remember.
Oh yeah, I mean, basically what I've come down to is every single trans femme person I've talked to is basically like, the problem is like, cis people's socialization doesn't easily fit into a binary of masculine and femme. It just tends to have a balance one way or the other. But with us, it seems like really slapdash, like which messages really land, which ones don't. Sometimes they don't land at all in some cases. Sometimes you get one or not the other. It's really hard. So this idea of suddenly calling out male socialization or, you know, that kind of stuff seems really weird to me, because that's not met the experience of anyone I've spoken to.
Right. And like, and you can't, because not every people on the, again, when we try and call this out on the internet, like, you don't know somebody's personal experience at all. Right. I think the most, like, the thing that we could say is, hey, generally we live in a society that has these norms at large. Right? We can say make the general statement, but as soon as you get down to specific people, like, no, this stuff goes out the window. It doesn't make sense anymore. So,
yeah, one of the things I often try and harp on is the fact that the closet is not a shield. And you know, someone who is growing up as a closeted trans woman, or as an egg who doesn't realize they're a trans woman yet, but they're going to realize it 20 years down the road, right? You're not being raised in a vacuum where, like, there's no trans misogyny that you're being exposed to while you're growing up, either in the closeted or before you realize you're trans. Right? I saw fucking Ace Ventura. Sorry.
You're totally allowed. A, you're allowed to swear. B, no, I'm also a child of the 90s. I was an adolescent of the 90s. And no, Ace Ventura, Silence of the Lambs, like, there's a reason I didn't come out till I was like 38.
No, exactly. Right? And that is a fundamentally, like, key experience in how you're socialized and how you internalize gender norms and roles. Like, we grow up in a society that says trans women are freaking monsters. Don't be like don't be like that thing. That's a freak, that's a monster, that's a predator. You don't want to be like that thing. And if you're someone who's a trans woman, even if you don't know it, you're still internalizing those messages. And there's so much like deep like shame and fear and stuff that we get instilled with, because oh, if I come out, they're going to treat me like I'm a trans woman, and trans women don't exactly get treated very well in our society, contrary to the opinions of some overpaid millionaire comedians.
True.
Yeah.
Or the entire BBC.
Or the entire BBC. Yeah.
So you were saying that, like, so they go off into these tangents about male socialization, sort of making this, like you said, it's misgendering with extra steps. And
it really is. It's...
Yeah, there was, I think some of the timeline was that there was a message that brought up the initial claim of getting inappropriate DMs, things kind of, there's a lot of stuff going on in the comments. And then there was a lot of, I think we saw quite a few posts afterwards also that kind of looked a lot like shitting on trans women, frankly. Bringing up more issues, more stuff. Yeah, so it's just for some of the context, and going through some of those comments was just wild. The anti-head pat
discourse was
surprising.
Was hot and virulent. Just
I had to like
so yeah,
there was some wild stuff.
That is, in my opinion, a classic example of the thing that I've been talking about. Right. It doesn't matter what it is. it will be used as a reason to justify saying that a trans woman is being a monster or a predator. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be literally anything.
Yeah.
And you know, we're seeing this now. We're moving. I'm moving kind of away from like Reddit trans misogyny into like generalized trans misogyny, but there's this stuff going on with TikTok. This trans woman got doxxed because she was dancing in her basement while her house was being renovated, and it looked, you know, her house looks like it's being renovated, and true crime people are like, oh, she's, you know, a serial killer and all this stuff, and she's getting doxxed and harassed, and it's like, homegirl was dancing in her basement. She was trying to make a fun video on TikTok, right? Like, completely innocent woman, didn't do anything wrong.
Well,
But
in a video that you could have just left alone, right? Like if it wasn't your thing, you could have just clicked away, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but she's a trans woman, so she has to be a monster.
Real quick, chat has a question. They're like, anti-headpat what now? One of the discussions of the sort of the trans misogynistic bend that happened was there was a trans mask individual who posted a picture saying like, can we stop with any of the posts about head pats? It really makes me uncomfortable. And then it went into this this is actually what caused me to unsub.
No, this is me too. Once I showed Jess this.
Literally someone tried to do the extra steps, like the RGR extra steps to, this is a breach of consent. And I was like, if like this is, again, it's such a maximized and misunderstood level of harm that someone's trying to fish out of like the most inane and frankly like harmless.
What did I see? Okay. Yeah.
Beam.
It was a breach of consent. It was calling somebody, apparently somebody else was like, it's calling someone submissive. It's calling somebody a bottom, I think. Like, they're like, no, this is creating a dom sub relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. These people are like, all 14, I swear to Christ.
The undercurrent in all of this is, again, collectively painting trans women as fetishists and predators and sex pests and monsters. It is rampant in society, in Reddit, everywhere.
I think, oh, if I can just say real quick.
Go ahead.
I think one of the things that made me really sad seeing this stuff was that for a while, I definitely saw some posts going like, hey, there's really not much trans mask representation. Like, that really is a thing. Like, we really need that. And when I saw that, that must have been like a few months ago, that was a bigger thing. But in the recent, like, you know, even the few weeks leading up to this stuff, I've been seeing more and more posts where somebody will take the same meme and go and make like 3 versions of it. So they'll make like a femme version and a mask version and an NB version. And it's the coolest thing because you can flip through it. It's like, no, we are all like collectively like sharing and stuff, right? Yeah. Like even if the wording's a little bit different or the direction that we're, you know, aiming to go is a bit different, like we're all still, you know, in a similar boat. And those were really, really cool. I really liked that part, right? Like that was like yes, let's do more of this. This is cool. Right? Random people on the internet are suddenly like pumping in tons of extra time to make a meme 3 times. Like, that's neat.
Well, an attempt was made to actually deal with a problem. So that's like, it's one of the reasons why some of the stuff around this feels really strange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. So yeah, that was just kind of been in my mind buzzing for a little bit. I've actually, this segment I also have notes on. So, this has kind of been a big topic in my head too. But yeah, go ahead. Keep telling us about. Sorry.
So one of the things that you always see get brought up is how trans women are overrepresented in a lot of these communities. And one of my friends sent me a message the other day that I thought really resonated with me. And if it's okay, I'd like to read it.
Please.
Yeah.
She said, honestly, it always strikes me as horribly telling when we're overrepresented or taking up too much space. You are in a space where trans women feel or felt safe. You were seen as a sanctuary, and your response, like all the others, is, why are you here? One of the things that, you know, you see when you look around society, I mean, trans women know that we get monsterized, and there is you can see all throughout the world there is a cross-cultural phenomenon of trans women and trans feminine people, you know, congregating with one another for support, whether that is a dara in India or a back alley in Naples or a Discord server hosted in New York City. um, Trans women congregate in specific communities because we have nowhere else to go.
It was funny because there was a meme I saw. I just wanted to bring this up real quick. There was a meme I saw that was literally like, "Hey, you're not welcome here. Okay, we'll create our own community." They go off. All right, you guys are excluding us. You go in. There's not room for you. Like it's literally just continually forcing trans women out of spaces. Like it feels like there's an attempt to cut us off from any kind of real engagement with the community.
Yes. No. And this is constant. It's especially one of the things that's especially frustrating to me. This is getting out of moving subreddits from r/traa to another big trans subreddit, r/asktransgender. There was a big issue for a while, and you can actually, people can go troll through my comment history for drama that happened over a year ago. At this point, um, Ask Transgender is another subreddit where you get all of these like, "Hey, trans women kind of suck, don't they?" posts like every once a week or once a month that get super highly upvoted. Um, and part of the problem is, with Ask Transgender at the time, because I used to talk to a lot of the I'm not a moderator on that subreddit, but I used to talk to a bunch of the different moderators there. And one of the things that, some of them explained to me was that, like, yeah, most of the moderation team on that subreddit was not trans women. And one of the things that's so frustrating to me is you end up in these situations where trans women are constantly getting blamed for all these problems in a community that they're not actually they don't actually have any power to fix. um so that's part of why, like, on r/traa, for example, I've been super gung-ho about, like, okay, people are complaining about this thing that trans women are doing. Okay, I'm gonna make it so that that can't happen on the subreddit anymore. We are taking that away. That's banned. It's done. Because I'm tired. I've been tired for literal years at this point of getting blamed for problems that I haven't been allowed to fix. And now I'm fixing them. I hope. I'm doing my best anyway. But it was really doubly frustrating with Ask Transgender. One of the moderators for a long time, and I won't say who this moderator was, but um but attentive viewers will know who I'm talking about. Uh this person is no longer a moderator of r/ask transgender because this person was a virulent trans misogynist, to the point that they were literally, and I don't want to get too into it, but this person was literally laughing at trans lesbians being called gigahun rapists. Um,
Wow,
and
that's a new one on me.
oh yes,
I hate that. Thanks, I hate it.
Yeah, no, I have receipts for all of this still, because I basically I had to spend about the better part of a year, a lot of which during which I was recovering from bottom surgery, so I had plenty of free time on my hands. Um, Basically trying to work with the other members of the Ask Transgender moderation team, be like, "Hey, is this person on your team, like, allowed to be going around saying these awful, hateful things about trans women?" Um, and it eventually all came to a head at one point where they, tried to start publicly threatening me on the subreddit, and that was pretty much the end of things for them. You can't come back from that when you show your ass that badly.
Sure.
And but yeah, it was like, this is the kind of person who is allowed to be a leader in our community, someone who, like, overtly hates trans women. Like, thankfully, that person is not a moderator anymore on trans Reddit. And I'm very happy about that, because that kind of person shouldn't be a moderator. But the fact that that person was able to be a moderator for so long, and I spent months essentially getting blown off by other members of the moderation team, trying to say like, hey, like, this is serious, you need to take this seriously, like, this is a problem. Like, when you have those kind of people in leadership positions, and they have these opinions about trans women, they basically aren't doing anything to ostensibly keep the bad behavior of trans women in check on these communities. It's so frustrating.
It sounds like it. It just this one event sounds incredibly frustrating, and you're talking about this as a trend.
I mean it is. There part of the problem is that a lot of people who aren't trans women like to explain to trans women what our lives and experiences have been like. And this gets back into like this stuff like male socialization and stuff.
Real quick, can I just add to that? We also see other trans femmes do this to each other. Trans misogyny, internalized trans misogyny is very real. You see this on Twitter all the time where someone will start tearing down another trans woman if she's doing well or she was able to get some sort of medical procedure. Like, there's ways that this even affects trans femmes. It's really weird. So I just wanted to bring that up. Like, this is not wholly with just non-binary and sort of trans mass people. It seems to be something that is infectious all the way through, just less so with certain groups.
It is, and I mean, a big part of it is, again, we live in a society that tells us every day, don't believe trans women. Trans women are bad. Trans women are, monsters. They take up too much space. They are too loud. They are predators. They are scum. And there is a bias throughout the queer community, that you can make up any bad thing about a trans woman and people will believe you, because by and large trans women are guilty until proven innocent in many ways, and I've experienced this. So I became a moderator of r/traa. Within 48 hours of me becoming a moderator of r/traa, there were users on other subreddits spreading verifiable lies about the things that I had done and said to become a moderator, or in the lead up to me becoming a moderator. About how I was speaking over other people. I was telling trans masks that, they weren't allowed to talk about their own experiences, and I was trying to silence them and push them out of the community. And all of that was verifiably untrue. The user who was spreading these lies about me had replied to a comment of mine where I said that and this is literally the entire comment, was me saying that characterizing trans women as being male or AMAB socialized is reductive, cis sexist, and misgendering with extra steps. And it is. And I will, I will keep saying that forever, because that is true.
I will die on this hill, damn it, this is correct.
I will die on this hill because this is correct. And I want to be clear, that's literally what I said. I did not say anything about the way trans mask people, or, trans people who were assigned female at birth, can or should not talk about their experiences. Their experiences are their own to define. And this user replied to me in a comment where I was explicitly and deliberately only talking about the experiences of myself and other trans women. And that was me dictating the way trans masks can talk about their experiences, silencing trans mask people, and all of these other heinous things. And they're going off on other subreddits saying like, oh yeah, that one user who's saying that gendered socialization doesn't exist and isn't real, and we can't talk about our experiences this way. And it's like, I never said gendered socialization didn't exist. I think it very much does. I just think it is a lot more complicated than saying trans women are male socialized, and it is. It
objectively.
It objectively, like, if your analysis of the gendered socialization of trans women ends at, oh well, they're socialized like cis men, you're wrong. I'm sorry, you're wrong. End of story.
This is verifiable. Like, this is, you can look up the research on this. It's limited, but again, like, this idea that, like, again, it just feels like, again, it's misgendering with extra steps. Well, this is clearly male socialization, or I'm just an assertive woman. Get bent.
Yeah. And
like, yeah, what's wrong with more assertive women? Like, really?
Anywho, continue, Kat. Sorry.
I you know, for me specifically, 48 hours, less than 48 hours is what it took for me to start getting monsterized on another subreddit, and me starting to get painted as a villain for things that I verifiably hadn't done and hadn't said. But you kind of touched on something there that I wanna, because oh my gosh, I had notes open and now they're gone. Give me a second.
Take a minute. You're okay. You're okay. No time limit. We're okay. By the way, welcome Jason here in chat. I gave you the VIP status, by the way, so you are now a VIP on the site. So, just FYI. Hi.
Hi, Jason here is another YouTuber.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I go ahead and read this bit as well?
Please.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Please.
So those who know me from this video, from trans Reddit, from trans Twitter, from wherever, know that I'm pretty outspoken and forceful. Especially when defending trans people from transphobia or defending trans women from trans misogyny. Of course, the trans misogynist might say, most women were raised to be meek, self-abnegating, submissive. You were socialized male, taught from an early age that your opinions and needs matter, that you should speak up. And if they're trying to be very clever, they may add, that doesn't mean you're not a woman. Of course you are. It just means you don't act like one. And it's really not even your fault. In fact, of course, it means you're not exactly a woman, and I want to say that without being called transphobic. It's also completely wrong, and it erases my actual history. To keep using myself as an example, before I transitioned, I was meek, quiet, terrified of imposing on anyone, and submissive. I was in an emotionally, physically, and sexually abusive relationship. With another trans person who was not trans feminine. Not that that should matter. I did what she told me to. I jumped when she said jump. I made excuses for the isolation and the harm and the screaming and everything. I never stood up for myself. And then I transitioned and found my voice. A lifetime of pain had taught me what it is to suffer, and as I took charge of my destiny, I learned to love myself, respect myself, advocate for myself, and fight. To attribute my hard-won voice to male socialization is to call me a not woman. It's to call me a man, and it's to erase my story. It also deletes the girl who was tortured for her girlhood, silenced, attacked, hurt, and dominated. It deletes the woman who took control of her life and finally learned to stand up for herself and the people she loves. It's handy for silencing me and nothing else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, the socialization argument is so freaking frustrating because, again, like Zena said, you, one, don't know someone's background, but two, like, I genuinely believe as a therapist that, like, I have seen socialization really be slapdash and hit or miss with people's, like, lives. Like, there are some people who are absolutely, like, have been socialized in certain ways, that don't match their assigned gender. I know plenty of trans women who are meek and quiet and try to be somewhat shy and distant because that's how they were raised and how they were sort of pre-programmed. It has nothing to do with necessarily like this binary one-to-one, you're born this way, so you must have this socialization. Socialization doesn't work like that. It's, yeah, I think that was beautifully written.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to think about that one for a little bit because there's a lot there.
If I can be honest,
Yeah.
I can only kind of sort of claim to have been involved in writing that.
Sure.
That was actually written by a very good friend. But the reason why I read that and why I have that handy is because that story is just as much true for my friend who wrote it as it is for me. And it's something that's always stuck with me because she really nailed it. So yeah, full disclosure, I did not write that.
That's fine. That's fine. Whoever it was, please tell them that was magical.
Yeah.
Oh, she's gonna love that you used that exact word to describe it. So I'm definitely gonna tell her.
Excellent. I am glad to make someone's day. Yeah, I mean, I think my problem with this is that like there is this way that no matter what community we interact with, there is a way that trans women are always pushed back to being some sort of degenerate or predatory man. And the fact that this is happening within our own communities, that is, we're hearing this from like certain transmisogynistic, either non-binary folks or transmasculine. And again, I'm not saying this is in any way, shape, or form the majority, nor am I indicting those entire groups. But the fact that we're hearing those types of things, and like I mentioned before, we see on Twitter the way that we see sometimes trans women, trans femmes tear down other trans femmes. This is really hard.
It is.
To constantly be stomped down and be told that, oh, you're taking up too much space. Oh, you're too represented. You're too here. It's really strange to me because, again, there's this way that like it feels like I hate to use the term that's burnt out, but America's Next Top Victim. It's like our experiences of this, and somehow it takes precedent over yours. This is the conversation that I just saw happen on Twitter with Stacey K getting bombarded by, yeah, we're sorry you had a shit upbringing, but remember your privilege. But I do remember my privilege. But I still had a shit upbringing. Yeah, but remember your privilege. Like, it's the same undercutting behavior that doesn't make sense. And the fact that this is happening on like subreddits that are ostensibly trans focused is so weird.
Well, again, there's one thing that you'll see a lot of. There's a lot of, how do I put this? When you spend as much time arguing with people about trans misogyny as I do, you start to notice a few common patterns. One of which is what feels like an abject refusal to say that trans misogyny even exists. So you'll see treatment or trans women getting mistreated in ways that are, objectively, definitionally trans misogyny. And those experiences will get flattened into transphobia. And granted, it is transphobia, that's true. But it's a specific type of transphobia that's specifically weaponized against trans women. And because that isn't acknowledged, you end up in these situations where it's, oh, no, trans women in particular aren't being mistreated. There's just, transphobia that's happening. Or, it's when it's within the trans community itself, it's it's literally just, not even being willing to acknowledge that you're mistreating trans women.
Well, let me bring something up there because there's something that stands out to me. So one of our moderators and one of our former moderators, they had to step down because of school. But one of our former moderators and my research assistant is named Anthers. And Anthers originally brought this up about, I want to say, a month ago in one of our content suggestion channels. And the thought was, Jess, what are your thoughts on this idea of trans misandry, right? Like what I've heard this thrown around and I don't understand why people are upset or bothered by it. And initially I was like, okay, maybe that could be a thing. I could kind of like hypothetically conceptualize this. But as I've kind of listened to some of these arguments, I just don't think that's a thing. Like, there's a specific intersection of both the feminine being demonized in society, that is, anything feminine is inherently looked at as invalid, inferior, or bad, and being trans that combines together to be a very special type of transphobia, something much more powerful than just your average sort of transphobia. And I don't see that same thing being levied, that same intersection against trans mask people. I could be wrong on that, but that's my concern. Is I actually think I don't really think that term is really useful. Misandry, trans misandry specifically. I guess what are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts are that we are stepping out of my lane.
Okay.
So
fair.
I don't want to, and again, this kind of goes back. I mentioned this before. I don't want to ever come across like I am speaking for or over the experiences of trans mask people, trans men,
True.
AFAB, non-binary people, what have you. I know that with the term transmisandry in particular, there's a little bit of, a lot of people have problems with that term. I know because one of the roots of it is the term misandry, which I think we can all agree, by and large, is a concept that is born out of bullshit men's rights activist spaces.
Yeah. Your Warren Farrell's, your men going their own way bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. I know I have also seen the term transandrophobia thrown around.
I like that one better.
Yeah, like I personally don't have a problem with that term. I but again, we're stepping way outside of my lane here.
Sure.
So I suffice it to say, I'm not comfortable having a conversation about trans misandry or trans androphobia because I am not equipped to have that conversation, and I wouldn't want to have that conversation without someone who is trans mask present.
Absolutely. I mean, Zena.
I mean, I am, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Zena is trans. Yeah, Zena is a trans mask NB.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was not. I should have asked.
That's okay.
Before.
That's okay. That's okay. Me and you have gone back and forth on this and tried to figure out a little bit. We don't have to go into a lot of it. Maybe this is a topic. Maybe we can.
No, this one might be better for stream because I'm kind of turning over some ideas about it.
Okay. Okay. Let's wait. Let's hold off on that. So yeah, I guess my only thought on is I mean, again, I can see something like that. I guess my concern is that my understanding of, and we can go back to this because I think this is more in mine and Kat's lane, is transmisogyny is a term, and we've talked about it on this channel before, is something that was a term coined by Julia Serrano. It's a way in which there is, like as she says, that there's an intersection between these two phenomena. Again, the demonization of the feminine and the way in which being trans is inherently looked at as inferior or negative or bad. And there seems to be a way that trans femmes are treated that isn't specifically the same way other trans people are treated. And we even talked about this at the beginning. There was the specifics of, Ace Ventura or Silence of the Lambs, or the way that trans women always ended up sex workers or dead from drug overdoses in crime shows.
So I've thought about this a lot, actually. Mm-hmm. So there is, I think part of why we have these issues a lot of the time is because I think a lot of people think that the experiences of trans femmes and trans masks must be mirrored, parallel, and that's not necessarily true. So a great way of demonstrating this is, transphobes in society, they want trans mask people to be women, right? They want to force transmasc people to be women. They don't want to force, or they don't want to, or they want to treat transmasc people like women. Sorry, treat is the word I meant to use there.
You're fine.
They don't treat trans women like we're men. They treat us like we're trans women.
Yes.
Because like trans women occupy a specific space in our, you know, gendered society where, like, say cis men have one gender role, cis women have another gender role. Trans women have their own gender role in society, and it's to be the scum that you don't want to be.
Well, and I've talked about this on our stream before, and I've spoken to a number of transmasc and non-binary people, and Zena's communicated as well. So if I misspeak, please let me know. But the way I see it is, like, if you look at, like, say, TERFs, for example, the way TERFs interact with, you know, say, transmasc individuals or non-binary folks is they infantilize them. There's a way in which, like, oh, you've been confused, you've been brought into the evil trans cult. But trans femmes are always predators and monsters and trying to usurp womanhood. There's a way that we're either looked at as, like, the enemy or a monster.
Yeah, no, and the TERFs are a perfect classic, and Zena, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but, like, yeah, TERFs treat transmasc people like they're women. They do not treat trans women the way they treat men. TERFs, they just don't.
Oh yeah,
they just
don't.
don't.
I mean, you don't need my confirmation for that. Yeah.
They treat trans women like we're trans women, and that is to say, the subject position that trans women occupy in our cis sexist trans misogynist society is trans women are the monsters. Trans women are the thing you don't want to be. Trans women are, you know, the way trans women are treated is what toxic masculinity is built upon. Because if you're not enough of a man, then we're going to treat you like the way we treat trans women. Trans women are the example of what not to be, and the example of the example of, if you don't act in line, we will treat you like we treat trans women. And Julia Serrano has the line, "Trans women are girls you can hit."
Oh, I hadn't heard that one, but
yeah,
fuck me.
Yeah,
that one stung. Continue.
That is the subject position that trans women occupy. Trans women, and this is cross-cultural. Trans women are girls you can hit. So there's basically, like, the treatment of trans women is used basically as a way of trying to keep everyone else in line. Cis men, stay in line or we will treat you like you're a trans woman. Cis women, do you see the way we treat trans women? You sure wouldn't like us to treat you that way, would you? Not saying that cis women have it great either, but this
is also frustrating, and I'm still recovering from that quote.
Yeah. No, when you look at the way society treats different types of people, and with trans femmes specifically, and you see, you know, basically society teaches us we are brought up in a society that says every day trans women are girls you can hit. That's the, like, most succinct way of describing it, and that's internalized in you know, cis society. It's internalized in the queer community by and large, and you see that in stuff like, you know, we can talk about Isabel Fall, for example.
Oh dear God. We covered that on stream.
We don't have to. Yeah, we'll be talking for another hour, and we've already been going for an hour.
Yeah. No, I'm right with you. Just we covered that on stream, and I still don't even know how to react to that. It's just bad. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
I would love to keep going. I kind of do have to be getting off though. So
Sure. Well, let me say this. First off, I really want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
second-
That's really cool.
And second off, I do want to say that like you are welcome back at any time if you want to come in and talk about these things.
Oh, of course I'd love to. Hit me up whenever.
Okay, absolutely will.
I am more than happy to be a regular, guest, whatever. This has been fun.
Great. Yeah, we would love to have you. We love our regulars, and it would be really cool to talk. Is there anywhere people can find you? Do you have anything you need to shout out, or?
You know what? You can find me on Twitter at binary aegis, which is I can type that out if you need me to. I'm on Reddit. User Catacly. I don't really have anything to plug right now because I don't have any like big cool projects, but I will plug my friend Maya Dean's book, Wrath Goddess Sing. If you haven't heard of it, it is going to be coming out next June. It is a retelling of the Iliad. The Iliad, Achilles, the Trojan War, all that fun stuff. It's a retelling of the Iliad with Achilles rewritten as a trans woman, which there's historical mythological precedent for.
Neat.
For anyone who doesn't know, Achilles actually grew up on the island of Skyros as a woman named Pyrrha, because her hair was red. So this is a retelling of that basically kind of, completely runs with that premise and says, no, Achilles was a trans woman. And she's very bisexual and very messy, and it's such a good book, and everybody should read it. It's going to be coming out next June. It's called Wrath Goddess Sing. It's freaking fantastic. I cannot sing the praises of this book enough. It's amazing. It's incredible.
We will keep a lookout for that. Thank you so much for that. That's really cool. I really appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Kat. We really, really appreciate it. And everyone watching, we will see you next time. Okay? Bye.
Bye, everyone.
If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, consider donating to us. You can support us on our website, transgirltherapist.org. You can also help us on our Patreon, link below, or you can become a member here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching.